everyone. Welcome back to Classic Comics. After years of anticipation, the MCU version of the Fantastic Four has finally reached theaters. Much like the recent Superman movie, this new Fantastic Four carries a lot of expectations. As the first film in the latest phase of the MCU, this film is the setup for the massive Avengers, Doomsday, and Secret Wars films that will reset the MCU and pave the way for the MCU version of the X-Men. By the way, there will be spoilers in this review, but I'll let you know when the spoilers are coming. So, does this get phase 6 of the MCU off to a good start? In my opinion, no, not really. Much like the recent Superman movie, Fantastic Four isn't terrible, but it's definitely not particularly good either. As you probably know, the film is set in an alternative version of the 1960s on another Earth. The film skips the usual origin story, simply summing it up in a brief montage at the beginning of the film. In fact, one thing that struck me is how long it takes the plot of this film to get going. The first 20 minutes or so of the movie is really just mostly exposition and world building, introducing the characters, their place in the world, and how the world views them. The plot, once it gets going, is very simple. Nothing wrong with that, really, but there are no surprises in this movie. The direction is overall fine. There are some action sequences which are competently done, but not particularly thrilling either. The actors are overall pretty good considering what the movie asks of them, but they are not really playing the comic versions of these characters. Reed is largely portrayed as hesitant, uncertain, and weak willed, constantly needing Sue to reassure him that everything is going to be okay. Johnny is fine, but his mannerisms and dialogue make him seem too modern to be a character in the 1960s, and that's actually a bit of an issue with the characters overall, really. The thing is well done from a visual standpoint, but his characterization is really just kind of bland. He doesn't have the strong personality that the comic book version has, and his voice just doesn't seem to fit the character. In addition, the film doesn't really give him a lot to do. Ben has always been the most popular member of the team, but it seems like he's really been pushed into the background. Susan is the member of the team that the film is clearly the most concerned with. Sue has always been the team's heart, but here she's clearly the one in charge, as Reed is portrayed as far too indecisive to be an effective leader. The Silver Surfer is just sort of there. She doesn't make much of an impression. It was reported that reshoots were done to help flesh out her character, and the stuff they added to make her more sympathetic is very obvious. I wasn't happy that they gender flipped the character, but she is just so bland and uninteresting, it's hard to really even care. She mostly just serves as a source of exposition and as a plot device. The visual effects are overall pretty good. Galactus looks good, and there are some sequences in space that are impressive. The Thing is captured on screen quite well, but the Silver Surfer's CGI just doesn't seem particularly good. One thing I'll give this film credit for is that the trademark Marvel humor is largely absent here. The film takes itself fairly seriously, not undercutting every dramatic moment with some snarky comment, which was a welcome relief. But still, it all adds up to a film that I found to be pretty underwhelming. If you're going to see this movie, I recommend catching a matinee and not paying the full price to see it. It's a decent diversion for a couple of hours, but nothing special. I'll give Fantastic Four a 5 out of 10. Before I go any further, let me take a moment to mention that most of the viewers on my channel are not subscribed. So, while you're here, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. That sort of engagement really helps with the YouTube algorithm and gets the channel out to more viewers. Thank you. Now I'm going to get into spoilers at this point, so you've been warned. Alright, as mentioned earlier, the plot of this film is pretty simple. The FF are the only superhumans on their Earth, or so it seems. They're beloved by the public. Reed has created many world-changing technologies, and Sue is a big socio-political leader. We learn early on that Sue is pregnant, and then the Silver Surfer shows up and warns them that Earth has been targeted for consumption by a cosmic space god called Galactus, who consumes worlds to survive. The FF determine where Galactus is out in space, and they travel there to meet him, attempting to convince him to spare Earth. When they meet him, Sue is heavily pregnant and close to delivery. Galactus senses that the baby, Franklin, is very powerful and can take away the hunger that forces him to consume worlds. He offers to spare Earth in exchange for the baby, which the Fantastic Four, of course, rejects, and they escape, returning back to Earth. Now, earlier in the film, Reed had invented a teleportation device, and proposes constructing a massive network of these teleporters, which will be positioned around the planet and then used to transport Earth to some other distant star system, hiding it from Galactus. But when they attempt to do this, the Silver Surfer arrives and destroys the teleporters, foiling the attempt. Then Reed suggests using Franklin as bait to set a trap for Galactus, using the teleporters to teleport Galactus across the universe, saving Earth. This leads to a battle between Galactus and the Fantastic Four. Galactus is defeated when Sue uses her force fields to push Galactus into the teleporter with a little help from the Silver Surfer and send him to the far side of the universe. And that's it, the end. There's a brief after credits sequence in which we get a brief glimpse of someone, clearly who is supposed to be Doctor Doom, although we never see his face. This film was very frustrating for me. There are some things here that I really liked, but overall I found the film to be pretty mediocre. The main issue I have is that when Galactus finally arrives, he has clearly been nerfed substantially. He's basically just a kaiju. He stomps through the city, squashing vehicles and smashing buildings, but he never uses any of his great cosmic powers. As a result, Sue comes a hairbreadth away of defeating him all by herself, which is ridiculous. It reminds me of Quantum Mania when Kang is defeated by a bunch of ants. This is supposed to be a huge universe-threatening opponent, but he's defeated pretty easily. This really ruins the character for future appearances. If he can be beaten by Sue single-handedly, then it seems hard to take him seriously as a threat in future films. Also, the characterization of the FF is quite different from their comic book versions. Reed is far too uncertain and timid. He seems to constantly need Sue to tell him what to do and to assure him that everything's going to be fine. The Thing is way too mild in temperament, as if he's on some sort of mood stabilizer. In fact, his entire role in this film is surprisingly small. He just doesn't do much. Sue is clearly first among equals here. She seems to get more lines and more screen time than the other team members. To be fair, she never exhibits some of the typical MCU girl boss behaviors. She never belittles Reed or the other male members, but she's clearly shown as the team's guiding force more so than Reed is. It adds up to a movie that is a bit bland and doesn't really deliver much beyond a few nice battle scenes. As a lead into Avengers Doomsday, it's pretty disappointing. Now, let me know what you thought of Fantastic Four First Steps and my review in the comments, and please do like the video, and I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching.